There is some bad news out there for Windows 10, as more and more users are starting to shift away from Microsoft Windows over to alternative operating systems such as macOS and Ubuntu. Should Microsoft be worried? That's our topic for the day. So I want to share with you this article from TechRadar written by Matt Hansen, and I will link to the article in the show description. It is titled, Bad News for Windows 10 as Users Shift to Ubuntu and macOS. Should Microsoft be worried? So the article discusses the latest data from Marketshare. Marketshare is a company that keeps track of market share of operating systems, web browsers, things like that. And some of the latest data is really interesting because Windows, both Windows 10 and Windows 7, are seeing declines in market share, and other operating systems, mainly macOS and Linux, especially Ubuntu Linux, are seeing good gains in the last couple of months. The last couple of months that does coincide with the global pandemic. So is that affecting this? It probably is. No one can say for sure, but most people that use Windows, especially most people at work, have to use Windows. Windows is very popular in corporate settings, and now that so many people are not working, you're just using your personal machines, your personal laptops at home. You're not forced to use a certain operating system. You have choice in what you use, and some people, rather than using Windows at home, are now moving to things like Mac and to Linux. So in March, Windows 10 had a 57.34% market share. It dropped to 56.08% in April. So about 1.25% drop in the Windows 10 market share. That's pretty substantial in 1 month. Also, Windows 7 market share has dropped. Now, Windows 7 has been end of life for a couple of months, so it should be seeing a decline in market share, but it dropped pretty substantially as well, 26.23%. And it dropped down to 25.59% again in just 1 month. So not a great month for the Microsoft operating systems, right? For the Windows operating systems. Now, who is gaining? Because obviously, if less people are using Windows, where are those people going? Well, it seems like a large percentage of them actually are going to Apple's macOS. It looks like the third most popular PC operating system right now is Apple's macOS 10.15, also known as macOS Catalina. So macOS saw a rise from 3.41% in March to 4.15% in April. So pretty substantial jump, especially when you're talking about 0.75%. That is a big jump when you're talking from 3% to 4%. That's a substantial increase in macOS users. Now let's get to the numbers that most of us care about, the Linux numbers. And one of the most incredible gains of this survey here, this net market share survey, is Ubuntu. Ubuntu in March had a 0.27% market share. 0.27%. In April, it jumped all the way up to 1.89%. Think about that. Nearly 2% of desktop computer users are running Ubuntu. And that is an incredible leap. 0.27% to 1.89% in 1 month. That's like 5-6 times gain in 1 month. Now, why the big gain? Well, Ubuntu just had their 2004 release, which is a LTS release. LTS releases only come around every 2 years. And because that just happened in April, that's probably why the big increase. A lot of people are installing Ubuntu right now. Most people that run Ubuntu run the LTSs. So it's a huge release. Every time there's a LTS, it's just a gigantic release for the Ubuntu team. I imagine they probably get 10 times the amount of people downloading the LTS releases as they do those 6-month interim releases. Now, what about Linux as a whole? Well, Linux as a whole has a 2.86% market share on the desktop. So right under 3%. That seems about right. That's kind of where most of us have always kind of put Linux, in that 2 to 3% range anyway. But, it's creeping up there toward 3%. And that's a good place to be, really. I mean, if you say that out of every 100 desktop users, 3 of them are using Linux, That's not a bad number. That's not an insignificant number. Remember, macOS only had a 4.15% market share. So we're getting close to macOS numbers. Now, Microsoft obviously is a trillion-dollar company, and to be honest, they're probably not that concerned about the death of Windows. I think they've seen this coming for a little while, that Windows is in decline. Really, desktop operating systems are in decline. Most people are using mobile devices now as far as, their daily devices, and really they're worried about things like the server and the cloud and services and, things like that. But it is interesting now that Linux seems to be gaining in popularity, and Microsoft is kind of on the Linux and especially the open source bandwagon. All of a sudden, they're all about making their software available on Linux. Just a few days ago, we noticed over at the Microsoft Edge Insider website, if you go there and you look at, it's the beta channel, dev channel, canary channel for Linux, if you want to sign up for Linux, guess what? It's coming soon. That's right. Microsoft Edge will be released for Linux. I mean, it's right here. I mean, they've already put this on their website. We've kind of known this for a while. Actually, about a year ago, I made a video. Basically, when Microsoft announced that they were moving their Edge browser from the old Edge engine over to the Chromium engine, I made a video like the next week saying, well, I'm pretty sure Microsoft, because they love Linux so much, they're probably going to go ahead and release Edge on Linux, because why not? If you're moving to the Chromium engine anyway, Chromium works on Linux, so you might as well make Edge work on Linux. And I made that video, like I said, about a year ago. And then like a week or two later, one of the Microsoft devs actually put out a tweet and said, yeah, we're thinking about doing this for Linux, actually, like it's legit. So we've kind of known that this was coming, but now it's really official because it's on one of their websites here. And the reason I mentioned that too is because I mentioned that tweet that guy put out saying, yeah, we're thinking about doing this for Linux. So as far as the Edge browser, well, they're doing it again. So over on Reddit on r/Linux, a guy posted this, that one of the Microsoft devs has started tweeting that they are going to release Office for Linux, and it shows Microsoft Word running on Linux. I think this is running Ubuntu. It looks like Ubuntu 2004, and he's got Microsoft Word running. And there was another tweet. I don't know if it was the same Microsoft dev. It probably was. And he had Excel running in Linux. Kind of cool, right? Why is Microsoft doing this, though? Why do they need Microsoft Office and Microsoft Edge running on Linux? I think they see Linux gaining in popularity. It's just a kind of a pivot, right? They're just shifting focus a little bit away from trying to put all their eggs in the Microsoft Windows basket, where you had that monopoly where everybody used Windows, everybody was locked into Windows. That's not the case anymore. For me personally, when I see that Microsoft is releasing the Edge browser and their Office suite for Linux, and I see the declining market share of Windows and the sharp increase in Linux market share, the only thing that immediately comes to my mind is we've won. And when I say we've won, I'm talking about we, the Linux community, but especially the free and open source software community. Proprietary software is a dying model, and these companies that are not on that train, they are going to be left in the past. Now, before I go, I need to thank a few special people. I need to thank Michael, Mitchell, Gabe, Chris, Chuck, DJ, Donnie, Dylan, George, Haplo, Nate, LibreQuest, Omri, Paul, Rob, Sean, and Willie. These guys, they are the producers of the show. And I also want to thank each and every one of these ladies and gentlemen. This is all my supporters over on Patreon. Without these guys, the channel wouldn't be possible, because this channel is supported by you guys, the community. Without you guys, none of this would be possible. If you want to support me, you'll find me over on Patreon. All right, guys. Peace.